Hello, 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 namaste, witchlings, and welcome back to Bitch and Witch, the podcast where I talk about the current events that have me pissed the fluff off, the systems that keep harming people, and why spiritual bypassing is utter and complete bullshit when real lives are on the line. Hi guys, I'm Di the Yoga Witch, and if you clicked on this episode, I'm going to assume a few things about you. Number one, you already know this is not going to be gentle. Number two, you are not here for sanitized takes or polite outrage. And number three, you understand that sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is say out loud, what the fuck is going on? All right, so why are we here and what is this space for? Well, let's take a breath with me, not to calm down, not to soften, just to arrive for just a second, because I need you here for this one. Not scrolling, not half-ass listening, not spiritually dissociating. If you're driving, keep driving. If you're folding laundry, keep folding. But you know what? Let yourself feel what's being said. Before we go anywhere today, though, I do need to name the ground we are standing on, because pretending otherwise is a big part of the problem. The world is on fire. Not metaphorically, not energetically. Actually, there is escalating violence, there is state harm, there is genocide, displacement, criminalization, poverty, and grief happening in real time. And here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. Many of us are being asked to metabolize that violence alone, quietly, politely, and without disrupting anyone else's sense of calm. So I am setting a boundary for this space right now. This is not a calming episode. This is not a soothing episode. This is not a let's all feel better episode. This is a clarity episode, y'all. If you are here looking for permission to stay numb, you are not going to like what I have to say tonight. If you are here because something in you is angry, tired, grieving, or just done pretending, welcome home, my friends. Because today we are talking about Sankalpa, not as a pretty intention, not as a self-care slogan, not as something you can slap on a fucking mug or a Canva graphic. We are talking about Sankalpa as a line in the sand. So, here is our thesis. I'm naming it early so there is no confusion. Sankalpa is not what we say we believe. It is what we choose to uphold when it costs us comfort. That's it. That's our episode. Everything else we're talking about today, spiritual bypassing, burnout, mutual aid, lives inside of that truth. Because intention that never touches reality is not spiritual. It's decorative. Sorry. Excuse us. I'm fighting with the technician over my computer. All right, my friends. What is Sankalpa and what is it not? All right. All right. Now, what is Sankalpa and what isn't Sankalpa? We are deprogramming the watered down version here. Somewhere along the way, Sankalpa got declawed. In a lot of yoga and spiritual spaces, it has been reduced to something small and soft and easily digestible. A word you pick, a vibe you hold, a feeling you set at the beginning of class and quietly abandon by Shavasana, like a post-it note that kind of loses its stickiness halfway through practice. Yeah, listen, I'm a witch. I love intention. I am not anti-intention. Intention matters, but intention without embodiment is a fantasy. It's wishful thinking dressed up in spiritual language, and it makes us feel like we've done something meaningful without ever having to actually do anything meaningful. Traditionally, Sankalpa is not a wish, it's not a goal, it's not a resolution, and it is most definitely not manifestation cosplay. Sankalpa is a solemn inner vow, a commitment made at the level of your identity, not behavior modification or mood management, identity. Now, that distinction matters because goals are conditional, intentions are flexible, and vibes change. Identity, when chosen consciously, becomes a compass. It shapes how you move through the world when absolutely nobody else is watching, when there's no yoga mat under your feet, and when the situation is uncomfortable or costly. A Sankalpa is not, I intend to be calm. I intend to be loving. I intend to stay positive. Those are emotional preferences, and preferences are things that are easy to maintain when things are going well. A Sankalpa sounds more like, this is who I am choosing to be even when it costs me ease, approval, or safety. That's a very different thing, because Sankalpa is not aspirational, it is directional. It doesn't ask, what do I want to feel? It asks, who am I when it would be easier to look away? And this is where people start to squirm, because a real Sankalpa will eventually demand something from you. It will ask for your time when you're already exhausted. It will ask for your money when you'd rather spend it elsewhere. It will ask for your energy when you're already stretched thin. And it may cost you reputation, approval, access, or even belonging. It may require you to speak when silence would be safer, or to stop speaking when performance would be rewarded. A Sankalpa that never disrupts your life is probably not a Sankalpa, it's branding. And I want to be absolutely clear here because this is important. Disruption does not always mean grand gestures or dramatic sacrifice. There are times it's just small, quiet, and deeply inconvenient. Sometimes it's changing how you respond in a room where you used to stay silent. Sometimes it's choosing rest instead of productivity. Sometimes it's refusing to participate in systems that benefit you while harming others. But it will cost you something, and that's how you know it's real. Right now, spiritual language is being used as insulation against reality. Words like alignment, peace, love, high vibration are being used to buffer people from discomfort instead of orienting them towards responsibility. Sankalpa, when it's stripped of its teeth, becomes yet another way to avoid reckoning with the world as it actually is. But that was never its purpose. Sankalpa is not here to make you feel better. It's here to help you live more honestly. It's a tether between your inner values and your outer actions. A reminder that what you claim to stand for has to show up somewhere in your choices, your boundaries, your relationships, and your refusals. And that's why this matters so much right now. Because in times of crisis, vague goodness is utterly useless. What matters is direction. What matters is what you uphold when comfort is no longer guaranteed. That is Sankalpa. And once you understand it that way, it really does become impossible to pretend it's just a word. You said it and forget it. Which brings us to our next piece. Spiritual bypassing in times of escalating harm. All right, y'all. Let's talk about spiritual bypassing because it is literally everywhere right now and it is doing some real forking damage. Spiritual bypassing is what happens when we use spiritual language and frameworks to avoid engaging with pain, injustice, or complexity. It dresses avoidance up in shiny-ass words, and it can be persuasive because it sounds like peace, healing, or even elevation. But the effect is avoidance, not accountability. You've heard it, you've probably said it, and most likely you've nodded along when someone else said it. Good vibes only. That's too negative. I'm protecting my peace. Talking about this lowers the frequency. We don't bring politics into spiritual spaces. Let's be abundantly clear. Calls for silence are often framed as peace, but they function as control. Especially when they come from people who are not the ones being harmed. Right now, what's happening in the world is not subtle by any means of the word. People are being hurt. People are being erased. People are being targeted and killed and dehumanized. And despite all of that, a lot of yoga, meditation, witchcraft, and spiritual communities are going around saying shit like, let's stay light. Let's stay positive. Let's not bring this energy in here. But here's the truth people don't want said out loud. Grief isn't negative energy. Anger is not low vibration. And naming harm is not divisive. If your practice requires you to look away from suffering, it is not sacred, my friend. It's anesthetic. It's numbing. It's bypass. Numbing. I swear I can talk. It is anesthetic, numbing, bypass, an attempt to spiritually whiten over very, very real pain. Spiritual bypassing is a defense. It's avoidance pretending to be transcendence. That cost of that avoidance is other people's suffering going unacknowledged and unaddressed. Now, why is spiritual bypass so dangerous right now? Well, let me say this pretty plainly. Peace is not the absence of discomfort. Silence is not neutrality. Love without honesty is not love. That one's control. Spirituality that cannot handle grief cannot hold truth. Let that one land. Spirituality that cannot hold grief cannot hold truth. Because if your practice only works when no one is crying or angry or naming harm, then your practice is pretty fragile, and it's going to shatter in moments that actually matter. Now, if you think I'm being dramatic here, let's talk about what's happening right this very minute in Minneapolis, Minnesota. January 7th, 2026. One freaking week into the brand new year, Renee Nicole Good, a 37-year-old mother of 3, was shot and killed by United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent, an ICE agent, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. She was a poet, a wife, a devoted parent, and someone her friends and family described as compassionate and loving. Video footage of her final moments shows the interaction leading up to the shooting and has ignited national grief, protest, and debate. Local officials, including the mayor of Minneapolis, have condemned the killing and called for the withdrawal of ICE from the city. Her family and community have mourned her loss and called for empathy, accountability, and even as federal leadership has described the incident as an act of domestic terrorism and utterly and completely declined to open a civil rights investigation. Now, what does all of this have to do with Sankalpa and spiritual bypassing? This is the perfect example of why avoiding truth in spiritual spaces is not only irrelevant, it is harmful. When people in spiritual communities respond to a story like this with "let's not talk about politics, stay high vibration, send love and light," they are effectively translating a real fucking human tragedy into a mood management exercise. That is not empathy. That is erasure. Grief, outrage, and truth are not divisions. They are human reactions to injustice. Anger at harm is not a low vibration. It is clarity about what is unfucking acceptable. And this is where Sankalpa comes in here. At its core, Sankalpa is about truth. Not spiritualized truth, actual, embodied, inconvenient truth. Spiritual bypassing asks, how do I feel? Sankalpa asks, what is real and what am I going to uphold in the face of this? If you want to talk about Sankalpa in a world on fire, it cannot be about mood. It must be about alignment with reality, even the parts that are ugly or uncomfortable. And here's the slippery part. There are a lot of spiritual teachings, meditation, breathwork, mantra that are powerful tools for interior transformation. But when those tools get turned into a shield against reality, they seriously lose their power and become escapes. You cannot meditate your way out of genocidal policies. You cannot breathe your way out of state violence. You cannot affirm away erasure. Trust me, we've tried. If your spirituality collapses in the face of pain, if it balks at anger, if it shuns engagement with harm, then it wasn't built to hold truth. It was built to protect comfort, and that is not Sankalpa. Sankalpa is uncomfortable, it is honest, it is present with what is real, even when it ruins the aesthetic. So let me say this one again, not as a slogan, but as a challenge. Spirituality that cannot hold grief cannot hold truth. Because naming harm is not negativity. It is accountability. And accountability is a stepping stone, not a stumbling block toward healing. If your practice requires you to look away from suffering, it is not sacred, it is anesthetic, and healing without truth isn't healing, it's fucking denial. Sankalpa in terms of harm is truth-telling. And that, my friends, is where transformation truly begins. We need to remember her name. Renee Nicole Good. She went by Renee. She was a wife. She was a mother. She was a human fucking being. Not a talking point, a headline, or a debate prompt. She was a human being. And Renee was killed during an encounter with ICE. There is video, not rumor, not hearsay, video recorded by the dumbass ICE agent himself. In that video, he is speaking with Renee's wife, Becca. Becca is a disabled veteran. And yes, Becca's being kind of snarky, she's being rude and kind of bitchy. And frankly, good on her, no pun intended, he fucking deserved it. Because here's the other thing people love to forget. Tone policing. Tone policing is the language of power. When someone with a gun and a badge is standing in front of you, the demand that you be polite is not about respect. It's about submission. Hi, child and sister of cops here. I know how they work. Now, in that video, Becca asks him, and this is the line that lodged itself in my mind like a fucking shard of glass. Do you feel like a big man picking on a fat disabled veteran? That is Becca speaking, not Renee. I'm just going to say the woman had a type, but we're not going to go there. The only thing you ever hear Renee say on that recording is this. I'm not mad at you, bro. I'm not mad at you. She is not threatening him. She is not escalating, aggressive, resisting, or violent. Let all of that sink in. The only word she said, I'm not mad at you. She's de-escalating. And Renee got shot. And then as the man who shot her walks away, the words fucking bitch are heard on that recording. Hear that again. The words fucking bitch are heard as he walks away. That's not chaos. That is not chaos or confusion or fear. That is contempt. After he shot her in the side of the head. That, my friends, is what it sounds like when someone stops seeing another human being as a person. And that is the sound of dehumanization fully locked in. That is what happens when armed power meets someone who has already decided does not matter. So, when people tell me not to bring politics into spiritual spaces, I want to fucking scream my head off. Because this isn't politics. This is state-sanctioned violence. This is institutional power backed by guns. This is dehumanization with legal cover. And this is what it looks like when the state decides who is disposable. And if your first instinct is to say, well, we don't know all the facts, I really need you to sit with why your reflex is to grant endless benefit of the doubt to the armed agent of the state and none to the woman who died. That reflex is not neutrality, it's conditioning. If your instinct is to say, oh, this is tragic, but let's not bring negativity into spiritual spaces, then I really need you to understand something very clearly. Your comfort is not more sacred than someone else's life. Full fucking stop. This is where spiritual bypassing becomes not just an annoying little but violent. Because telling people to stay positive in the face of state-sanctioned murder is not peacekeeping. It is collaboration with silence. And silence always sides with power. This is the moment where a lot of spiritual people try to soften their language. They want to say things like, well, both sides or complex situations and sending love and light to everyone involved. No. Fuck that. Not everything needs to be softened. Not everything needs to be balanced. And not everything deserves your motherfucking neutrality. Some things need to be named for what they are. This was an execution enabled by a system that trains its agents to see certain bodies as threats and others as fucking collateral damage. And if that makes you uncomfortable, then good. It all fucking should. Shut up, phone. It should, because discomfort is the beginning of consciousness. And here's the part that really pisses me the fuck off. People are going to say, well, this is why I can't watch the news, or I can't handle stories like this. As if opting out is a moral position. It's not. It's avoidance. I understand if you have PTSD and it triggers you. That is a completely different matter altogether. But if you're just avoiding this shit because you don't want to think about it, that avoidance does not stop the harm. And it just ensures that harm continues unfucking challenged. So when someone tells me that talking about this lowers the vibration, I want to ask whose? Whose vibration? Yours? Because Renee's vibration ended in a parking lot or in the middle of a fucking street with a bullet in her head and her son's stuffies hanging out of the goddamn glove box. When someone tells me they're protecting their peace, I want to ask at whose fucking expense. Because peace built on someone else's erasure is not peace, it's fucking privilege. And if your spirituality collapses the moment it's asked to confront state violence, then your spirituality is not resilient. It's fragile, and it only works in rooms where nothing is at stake. That's not spirituality. That's a fucking spa day. This is where Sankalpa stops being a pretty little concept and becomes a fucking demand. Because Sankalpa asks questions that don't let you look away. What am I willing to stay present with? What reality am I refusing to numb? What discomfort am I avoiding in the name of peace? Now, who benefits from my silence is another one. Sankalpa does not ask, how do I feel right now? It asks, who am I when the truth becomes unbearable? If your Sankalpa is, I choose love, then I need you to answer this, love for whom? Because love that refuses to name violence is not love, it's cowardice dressed up in pretty language. Love without truth is not love, it is control and containment and an attempt to keep things comfortable for the people least impacted by harm. And I am so done pretending that is spiritual. Here's another part people really don't want to hear, though. If your spirituality teaches you to breathe through injustice instead of confronting it, then it has truly failed you. Breath is not a substitute for accountability. Meditation is not a replacement for moral clarity. Crystals, as much as I love them, do not absolve you from responsibility. You cannot rise above a system that is actively killing people. You either confront it, resist it, or benefit from it. There is no other option. So no, I will not stop bringing this into spiritual spaces. I will remember that there is a time and a place, but I will not stop bringing it into spiritual spaces, because spiritual spaces that refuse to engage with reality are not healing anyone. They are training grounds for complacency. That is not Sankalpa. This rage, this grief, and this utter and complete refusal to sanitize any of this shit, this is Sankalpa as truth-telling. And here's your bitchin' witch line. Burn it into your bones. Write it on the inside of your motherfucking ribs if you have to. Sankalpa is the willingness to stay present with what is real, even when it ruins the aesthetic. Especially when it ruins the aesthetic. Because a spirituality that only works when everything looks pretty is not strong enough for the world we are living in. And Renee deserved a world that was braver than that. Now let's talk burnout. Okay? Because if you're exhausted right now, physically, emotionally, spiritually, you are so not alone. And I don't mean, I could use a nap, kind of tired. No. I mean that kind of tired that lives in your bones. The kind that makes it hard to care about things you used to love. The kind that feels like your nervous system is permanently braced for impact. Somewhere between depression and people are tired, dissociated, numb, barely holding it the fuck together. And instead of asking why this keeps happening, you know what our culture keeps asking? What the fuck is wrong with you? What's wrong with your boundaries? What's wrong with your mindset? What's wrong with your self-care routine? And what's wrong with your discipline? Productivity culture didn't disappear. It just got a rebrand. And now it wears yoga pants and spiritual language and talks about discipline, alignment, resilience, optimization, and doing the work. And wellness spaces subtly and occasionally aggressively blame individuals for system-induced collapse. Ain't that grand? It really is. Now, if you're burned out, the message goes something like this. Well, you just didn't manage your energy very well, did you? You didn't set strong enough boundaries. You didn't meditate enough. You didn't journal consistently. You just didn't manifest correctly. That is such bullshit. Burnout is not a personal failure. It is a systemic outcome. You, my love, are not failing because you are tired. You are tired because you are living inside systems that extract and extract and extract until there is absolutely nothing left, and then shame you for not bouncing back with a motherfucking smile. Sankalpa gives us a way to refuse that lie. Because burnout is not a sign that you are broken. It is a sign that something around you is. Let me say that one again, because we need the people in the back to hear this. If you are burned out, it does not mean you are weak. It means you have been asked to survive conditions that are unsustainable. Resilience has been weaponized, rest has been turned into a reward instead of a right, and self-care has been sold back to us as a personal responsibility instead of a collective necessity. And here's the quiet truth absolutely no one wants to admit. Many, many people are not failing. They are resisting by default. Because exhaustion can be information. Exhaustion is your body saying, hello, this pace is violent, the demand is inhumane, and this cost is way too high. Burnout is what happens when your nervous system realizes before your mind that something is deeply wrong. Burnout is what happens when your nervous system realizes before your mind that something is deeply wrong. And instead of listening to that signal, we're told to override it, push harder, push through, try harder, just keep going, optimize, get better at managing ourselves so the system doesn't have to change. Well, fuck that. Sometimes a Sankalpa is not about pushing through. Sometimes it's about stopping. Stopping the constant availability. Stopping the unpaid emotional labor. Stopping the self-fucking sacrifice masquerading as virtue. Stopping the idea that your worth is measured by your output. And here's a line that I really want you guys to sit with tonight. Really, really sit with. A Sankalpa can be the decision to stop sacrificing yourself to systems that would replace you without blinking. Because they would. Your job position will be in the want ads or on LinkedIn before your obituary hits the newspaper. The algorithm will keep running, and the machine will not pause to grieve you. It doesn't care. So why are you destroying yourself to keep it fed? Sometimes Sankalpa isn't I will do more, or I will try harder, or I will be stronger. Sometimes it's I will no longer be consumed. That's not weakness. That is refusal, clarity, and care. And let's be honest. Let's be brutally honest here for just a second, y'all. Refusal scares people, especially systems that rely on your exhaustion to function. Because when you stop pushing past your limits, something breaks. But that's not you that breaks this time. It's the illusion that endless output is normal or sustainable. When you rest, when you say no, when you pull back, when you stop performing resilience, you expose the lie that this pace was ever reasonable to begin with. And here's where Sankalpa matters again. Because Sankalpa is not about becoming the most productive version of yourself. It's about becoming the most honest one. Honest about what you can carry and what you refuse to carry anymore. Honest about what kind of life you are actually willing to live. Sometimes your Sankalpa is not I will heal. Sometimes it's I will stop letting myself be harmed. Sometimes your Sankalpa is not I will stay aligned. It becomes I will stop contorting myself to fit systems that were never designed with my humanity in mind. Burnout culture, it wants you to believe that if you just tweak yourself enough, everything's going to be fine. Sankalpa says no. Sometimes the problem is not you. Sometimes the problem is the goddamn fucking system. And choosing not to internalize that harm, choosing not to blame yourself for collapsing under impossible conditions, that, my dear, is not giving up. That is reclaiming your life. That is Sankalpa as refusal. And refusal right now is a radical fucking act of care. I tell you. Now, let's talk about where hope actually lives, because it sure as fuck isn't in institutions now, is it? It lives in people. While systems stall, fail, deflect, or even actively cause harm, communities are doing what they have always done. Feeding each other, housing each other, protecting each other, raising funds, sharing resources, and showing the fuck up. That is not theoretical, aspirational, or a simple little think piece. That, my friends, is mutual aid. And this matters because mutual aid is what Sankalpa looks like in motion. Sankalpa is not a declaration you make once and feel good about it. It is not a sentence you post and forget. It is a pattern of behavior, repeated, embodied, and consistent over time. You can say you value community all day long. You can say you care about justice. You can say you believe in collective liberation. But I'm going to quote Eliza Doolittle and say, show me. Sankalpa asks, where does belief actually touch the world? Mutual aid is not charity. Charity flows downward. Solidarity flows sideways. Charity keeps power intact. It allows the giver to remain comfortable, distant, and in control. Solidarity, on the other hand, recognizes shared fate. It says, your survival is bound up with mine, and I am not above you, I am beside you. We will walk arm in arm here. Care in this framework is not transactional, it be relational. It's not about deserving, purity, or optics. It's about need, connection, and response. And this is where a bunch of people get stuck, because embodied care is seriously messy. It's awkward. It doesn't come with applause, and it typically costs time, money, energy, or even just emotional bandwidth. It asks you to be uncomfortable, to get involved, and to risk being imperfect. And that, my friends, is exactly why it matters. Because intention only becomes real when it moves through hands, not hashtags. Posting about injustice is easy. Sharing a link is easy. Agreeing in theory is easy. What's harder is showing up even when it's inconvenient. And yes, I am aware just how ableist I sound right now. If your body can't get out there and do it, then yes, do what you can with what you can. Please, I don't want to exclude my spoonies here. What's harder is redistributing resources when it means having less yourself. What's harder is staying engaged when there isn't recognition or reward coming for it. That's where Sankalpa stops being conceptual and becomes embodied. Now, here's another anchor for you. Sit with this one. A Sankalpa becomes real the moment it costs you convenience. When you show up, even when it's awkward, when you help without centering yourself, when you give in ways that are quiet, unglamorous, and utterly necessary, when you choose participation over performance, that is Sankalpa embodied. Now, got to be clear about something here, because this is where burnout likes to sneak back in if we're not careful. You do not have to do everything. You are not required to save the world. You are not obligated to destroy yourself in the name of care. Mutual aid is not martyrdom. It is sustainability. It's not about being the most visible helper. It's about being a reliable one. Now, sometimes embodied care looks like money. Sometimes it looks like time, skills, labor, or even access. Sometimes it looks like stepping back and letting someone else take the lead. Sometimes it looks like rest, so you can keep showing up tomorrow. Sankalpa doesn't demand that you do all the things all the time. It asks that you do the things that are actually yours to do, honestly, consistently, and without performance. And here's something to remember. Mutual aid exposes the failure of institutions, and they don't like that. Every meal shared, every rent fund raised, every community defense effort is proof the systems are not meeting people's needs. That can be kind of uncomfortable, especially for people who have benefited from those systems. But discomfort does not mean harm. And avoiding discomfort does not help anyone. Sankalpa, as embodied action, is the choice to stay engaged anyway. It's the choice to ask, what do I have access to? What do I have capacity for? Where can I show up without centering myself? That's the important part, without centering myself. It's not about purity or being perfect or getting it right every time. We're all going to fuck up now and again. It's about staying in relationship. Because mutual aid is not a one-time act. It's a practice and a rhythm and a commitment. It's a commitment to interdependence in a culture that glorifies isolation and self-sufficiency. And that, oh my God, that right now is revolutionary. So if you're looking for Sankalpa in a world on fire, stop looking for it in slogans and start looking for it in kitchens, group chats, fundraisers, carpools, and late-night check-in texts. Look for it where people are quietly keeping each other alive. That's not naive hope. That's practiced care. That is Sankalpa. Not spoken, lived. Okay, let's check in with chat right quick. Oh. Check engine light. Oh, of course, that's the one saying the check engine light. Boopy doopy doo. Oh. Ah. Yep. Okay, hey Austin. I was in San Diego. Well, I made it through boot camp and my tech training. Was assaulted on active duty. Made the mistake of reporting it. I got the boot. He got to retire at 20-some years. But I stayed in San Diego as a Navy wife for about a decade. And I will be honest, there are times when I'm pretty sure that being a spouse is just as hard as being the active duty member. For reference, I was an active duty wife. When 9/11 happened, he was deployed. That was entertaining. All right. Let's start screaming about Sankalpa some more. Are we enjoying this so far? I'm having fun. All right, y'all. Let's pull this together here. I'm going to take a sip first. All right, now, let's pull this all together, because if we don't integrate what we have named, it just becomes another episode that you nod along, yep, okay, yep, and then forget. And that would be a fucking waste of the truth we've been circling and the time I have put into this. Spiritual bypassing avoids truth. Sankalpa demands honesty. Burnout reveals systemic harm. Sankalpa demands boundaries. Mutual aid shows what care looks like. Sankalpa demands participation. Not perfection or purity. Participation. That's the through line. That is our spine here. We are living in a world that rewards performative goodness and punishes embodied integrity. A world where it's easier to say the right thing than to do the hard thing. A world where comfort is framed as virtue and disruption is framed as failure. Sankalpa cuts through that bullshit, because Sankalpa is not about being liked. It is not about being seen as one of the good ones. It's not about spiritual credibility or moral superiority. It is about alignment. Alignment between what you say matters and what you actually uphold when it costs you something. I want to be clear here. Sankalpa is not about becoming better people. It's about becoming braver ones. Brave enough to name harm instead of spiritualizing it away. Brave enough to rest in a culture that demands constant fucking output. Brave enough to act without applause, recognition, or validation. Brave enough to stop abandoning your values the instant they become inconvenient. Because that right there, that is the real test. Everyone has values when nothing is at stake. Everyone has intentions when they don't require sacrifice. Sankalpa shows up when something is at stake. When your voice shakes, your body is tired, and when the room goes quiet after you speak. When you don't get thanked or rewarded, and when you are so tempted to just creep back into the closet and go back to being silent because it would be so much easier. That, my friends, is where Sankalpa lives. So, if you want a Sankalpa for a world on fire, one that can actually hold weight and doesn't collapse under pressure, here's a few offerings. Don't pick one because it sounds nice. Do not pick one just because it sounds nice. Pick one because it challenges you. Sit with it and let it bother you just a little bit. I choose to act in solidarity with people who are being harmed, even when they do not look like me, live like me, or make me comfortable. That one asks something real of you. It really asks you to confront your conditioning, blind spots, and your reflexes to center yourself. It asks you to stay present instead of retreating when harm doesn't touch you directly. How about this one? I refuse to protect my comfort at the expense of other people's lives. That's a line in the sand. That is a refusal to let ease dictate your ethics. It's a commitment to stop treating discomfort like an emergency and injustice like an inconvenience. Or, if today has already wrung you the fuck out and you need something gentler and something survivable, how about this one? I practice care that does not abandon people when it becomes inconvenient. Because care that only exists when it's easy isn't care, it's preference. Care shows up when it's messy, awkward, tiring, and unglamorous. Care stays. And here's the thing I really want you to hear before we close out. Your Sankalpa does not have to be loud or public or impressive. It just has to be honest. Your Sankalpa might look like saying no when you're expected to say yes, or resting when you're told to push through, or redistributing resources quietly. It might look like speaking up once instead of staying silent forever. It might even look like stepping back instead of centering yourself. It might even look like stopping altogether, because stopping can be a seriously radical act in a world that profits from your exhaustion. And I want to say this one rather clearly because people fuck this shit up all the time. Sankalpa is not about martyrdom. It is not about burning yourself down to prove you care. It is not about becoming a cautionary tale. If your Sankalpa destroys your ass, it is not aligned, it is coercive. Sankalpa is not meant, or Sankalpa is meant, Sankalpa is meant to sustain you in the work, not sacrifice you to it. It asks, how do I live in a way that I can keep living with? How do I act without betraying myself? How do I care without disappearing? That's a big one for a lot of us. How do I care without disappearing? How do I stay awake without going numb? Whew, that one's the work. That's the work and the practice. And honestly, if all of this feels overwhelming, if the world feels just too big, the harm too constant, and the demands too heavy, hear this part slowly. Your Sankalpa does not have to save the world. It just has to stop abandoning your values. That's it. You don't have to fix everything. You don't have to respond to every crisis. You don't have to carry what is not yours to carry. But you do have to decide who you are when things are hard. You do have to decide what you will no longer excuse, tolerate, or spiritualize away. You do have to decide where you will stop outsourcing your conscience to comfort. That decision, made quietly, imperfectly, and again and again and again, is Sankalpa. Not spoken, not posted, not branded, lived. So take a breath, not to calm down, but to anchor. The world is still on fire. The harm is still very real. The grief is still here, heavy and hard. And so is your capacity to choose differently. That's not hope as denial. That's hope as commitment. That is Sankalpa. And I'll leave you with this, not as a command, but as an invitation. Stay awake. Stay honest. Stay human. Even when it ruins the aesthetic. Especially then. Now, before you go, I want to leave you with something to sit with, not as homework or a demand or as something you need to resolve right now. Just an invitation. One more time, take a breath. Not to calm down, just to arrive. And here's the question. Where does your stated intention and your lived reality no longer match? And what would it mean to bring them back into alignment? Don't rush to answer that. In fact, don't answer at all if the first response feels neat or rehearsed. Sankalpa doesn't live in polished responses. It lives in the places where the answer catches in your throat, where your body reacts before your mind finds words. This isn't about self-judgment. This isn't about this isn't a moral audit or a checklist of our failures. This here is about honesty. The kind that doesn't punish you for noticing the gap, because everyone has one. We all, every single one of us, carry intentions that are real and sincere, and we all live inside systems that make it so hard to embody them consistently. The work is not pretending the gap doesn't exist. The work is being willing to see it without flinching. Notice where you soften your language, where you stay quiet to keep things easy. Don't rock the boat. Notice where you say, that's just how it is, instead of, that's not okay. Notice where you tell yourself, I'll deal with it later. None of that makes you a bad person. It all makes you human. Sankalpa doesn't ask you to close that gap all at once. It simply asks you to stop lying to yourself about where it is. What would alignment actually look like? Not in theory, not at your best, but in the life you are living right now. Would it be a boundary, a refusal, a conversation you've been avoiding, a redistribution of your energy, time, or care? Or maybe alignment looks quieter than you expect. Maybe it looks like resting without justifying it. Maybe it looks like staying present with discomfort instead of numbing it away. I'm prone to doom scrolling. Maybe it looks like choosing one small, consistent act over grand, unsustainable gestures. Maybe you decide you're going to donate $1 a month to a cause that means something to you. Let your answer be messy and unfinished, because Sankalpa is not a destination you arrive at and stay forever. Like most other things in yoga, it is a practice, a returning, a recalibration you make again and again and again as the world changes and you change with it. And here's the most important part, the part I really don't want you guys to miss. You are not required to be perfect to be aligned. You are not required to be fearless. You are not required to get it right every time. You are only asked to be honest about where you are and willing to move one step closer to what you know is true. That is Sankalpa. Not spoken, announced, or performed, lived. So, take that question with you and let it walk beside you. Let it surface again when you're ready. And when it does, listen. That's your practice. All right, now, before we go, haha. All right. All right, my lovelies, my witchlings, my friends. Before we go, I want to remind you that this space exists because of our witchling community. I have no corporate sponsors yet, just a lot of shared magic, mutual care, and a whole lot of love. So do us a favor and like, share, subscribe, join the channel if you have the availability to do it, and then tell a friend about us here. Now, Let's all go out there and spread love, spread joy, and spread kindness. There is already enough darkness in this world. Please let us choose to be steady lights for those finding their way through it. Tell your loved ones in all their lovely forms, 2 legs, 4 legs, wings, fur, scales, paws, or claws, that they matter deeply to you. Time moves a whole lot faster than any of us realize, and the chances to say I love you are never guaranteed. And if you take one thing, and one thing only, away from everything we do here, I want it to be that you always, always remember. You are loved. You are wanted. You are needed. And you're here for a reason, even if you don't know what it is yet. Took me 45 years to find mine. I will see you all soon. I love you to bits. Namaste, Witchlings.